Hey everyone, welcome to tonight's evening vlog. I just drove this road. It's gonna probably take us 2 hours to drive back on it. I like to travel these roads before I do hazard marking, because if there's a dozen frost heaves that are huge, one after another, I'm not gonna mark every single one. If I figure out how many there are and mark it on the way back, I only have to put a whole bunch of hazard ribbons on each end of the chain of frost heaves. But I just took like a half an hour break, hung out on this bridge. Out here it's so quiet, you'd hear a vehicle coming from long away. The logging trucks are not going to be using this road until 2 a.m. They only run between 2 a.m. and 10 a.m. now. It's snow covered. This in particular area did not get above freezing today, but we did go on areas today in lower elevations. Like this road is up and down in elevation. There's some mud holes already, but it freezes up really nice at night, and that's when it can hold the big log trucks. They're not running now, and this snow just happened earlier today. The big trucks haven't yet been on here, but they'll be back on here 7 more hours or so. Maybe they'll run earlier, I'm not sure. Sometimes they'll run earlier if it's nice and firm. But in today's video, we're gonna just talk a vlog type video, and we're gonna get out and flag a bunch of those ribbons. But I just took a half-hour break. I had to take my big high boots off. Believe it or not, the lower elevation areas that it's slushy and there isn't any snow really, there's a lot of melt. Like right there, that river is a large river, the St. John's River there, that is still completely frozen solid. The ice hasn't even started breaking yet. And it's the first week of April. But that's normal for these areas. April is usually the month. It's gonna break at some point this month. I can almost guarantee that. It can snow here in May, actually very common. Sometimes June, but more rare. Growing season here is not until June 15th. The trees won't even grow their leaves until early June up in these far northern Maine areas. But we did find a couple beaver dams. We found one that had a big shell of ice over the top of it with water flowing under it. I had to use a fireman's axe. I attempted it last week. Couldn't do it with just the rake. It was so difficult. But I came back today with the fireman's axe. I broke open the whole shell, exposing the beaver dam below it. We were able to knock it down by half. Could have definitely done it by full, but I don't do that this time of year. We just needed the culvert to be open enough so the road won't flood when this starts thawing, because we don't want to affect the beavers negatively this time of year. But by lowering it just slightly, a couple of feet, their lodge and everything should be still fine. It should be equipped to handle drought conditions. That's how they're usually set up. And then we'll completely lower it maybe in another month when this is all melted out. And hopefully they can get relocated. Usually when we have a bad area like that where we want to get them relocated, we will call the DNR, and they're always happy to move them. The Department of Natural Resources moves a lot of beavers out west in drought areas because, you know, out west the sun is strong. Lots of farmers, crops grow fast, but those wells pumping all that water out of the ground dries up the aquifer, causes the ground to start sinking as it dries up. But beavers can help with that. How? How do beavers rehydrate a desert? Well, even little streams and creeks, them building dams creates ponds. Ponds are heavy. It forces water deep into the ground, recharging those aquifers. That's why they move a lot of them out there. The success rate of moving a beaver is only about 40% survival rate, but that's far better than private landowners and logging companies just shooting the beavers. I'm sure everyone can agree that's much better results, 40% rather than 0. And it's been proven if they can move the entire beaver family, the parents and any young ones they might still have living with them, the success rate of them surviving is 60%, because they could survive easier together and they won't suffer any sort of homesick or depression that way. So if they can trap all the beavers as a family and keep them together through that move, the success rate is actually higher, so that's nice. Then we found another one that we completely removed, but it wasn't gonna lower the pond at all. That'll be in an upcoming video. There's these whole bunch of gigantic 8-foot culverts next to each other. Not sure why they didn't put a bridge. I imagine those culverts are probably more expensive than a logging bridge like the one we just ran or drove over. It's built like a train trestle, very strong underneath that thing. It's literally built like a train trestle because log trucks are very heavy. They're 200,000 pounds each because they have double wide trailers. They'll sometimes stack them up 18 feet or higher. Illegal height, illegal width, illegal weight. These are private roads. From the logging site to the mill, all private roads. They can do whatever they want. All those trucks are deleted. They have all kinds of stuff that would not be allowed on the roads. But these are private roads. They can do what they want. Honestly, I wonder if any of the companies run red diesel, because there's no reason they couldn't. Those old trucks that are deleted, the newer ones or the older ones, they could run off-road fuel with no problem. Off-road fuel, I believe, has higher sulfur. Am I right? I might not be right about that. I know heating oil is dyed and it has high sulfur. Can't run that in the newer diesels with the particulate filters. It'll ruin them. But I do wonder about that. I'll have to look into that. If any of the companies that are strictly off-road and they never even go out on the public roads have that or not. They might. I don't know about that. But there's these 3 8-foot culverts right next to each other. 2 of them were fully open. One was blocked by beavers. I'm imagining they were all blocked by beavers and the storm surge from the recent thaw broke the other ones. That's what I'm thinking. But that was satisfying. There was a dam in one of them still holding up over 2 feet of water, and I just loosened the edges of it and the whole thing slid out all at once. Oh, another log that fell off a truck. The logs aren't very big. Most of these are for pulpwood, paper products, toilet paper, OSB boards. That's what they're making. And whatever's left over gets thrown into wood-burning power plants. That's how the state of Maine can say they have 80% renewable power. Most of that renewable power is not coming from the windmills you see around or the solar you see around. It's coming from wood-burning power plants. The remains of the logging industry is what's powering those. This area we're currently in, most of this is going into Canada. This is leased by Quebec lumber companies, this land. This is a tree farm. It makes sense because where we are right now, if you see the mile marker, that one just said 13, that's the border. Other direction, you probably got 100 miles before you get, no, probably more than that, before we would get to a Maine mill. So it makes sense to send it into Quebec instead. It's so close. And right now, this is vast wilderness. As soon as you get over the border, it's quite populated. This is all giant protected area. In these areas, there's always groups of people trying to protect these forests, like trying to take away the logging industry. But those people gotta understand, where do you think your wood-framed house came from? Most people who live in Canada and the United States live in wood-framed houses. Without the commercial logging industry, you can't build that stuff anymore, and it costs too much to build anything out of stone or brick in North America. It's not like it is over in Europe. The reason in Europe it's cheaper to build stone is because there's not really many trees left. But here, none of this is old growth. This is has literally all been replanted and reorganized by the logging company. This area is mixed. This is not exactly replanted. This is healthier. Cut it down and let it grow back naturally with diversity. It keeps the environment healthy as can be in a working forest. We will be passing through areas in the next hour where you can tell they replanted it. The rows of trees are straight. That's called a monoculture. Not healthy. You don't get an ecosystem going in there when everything is exactly the same tree. It's also a huge fire hazard if one ever did break out. Most of what they plant up here is balsam fir. Balsam fir is naturally fire retardant when it hits about 80 years old. this stuff is cut down and replanted every 40. It'll never get that protection. What I mean is, these younger trees, as they shade out the lower branches, naturally it'll kill off the lower branches of the tree. Now you have a whole bunch of dead branches that are not going to fall off within that 40-year period. So if a sweeping wildfire does come by on the floor, it's going to climb up into the canopy where there's lots of sap and flammable needles. That's why it's so bad, and that's one of the reasons they've stopped doing a lot of monocultures out west. It just helps fires spread. Because after 80 years, all those dead branches down that used to be low to the ground have now rotted off. So there's no path for the fire to get up into the canopy. So sweeping wildfires can just clean up the forest floor with no problem. But another problem is people prevent forest fires that are natural, and then when eventually one does break out, there's so much debris on the ground that hasn't been naturally being burned, it creates just a really big disaster. So those are some reasons. And if there's ever a pest, like out west, they have the pine beetle, and there's other variations of invasive insects. If every tree is the same and that insect likes it, it's going to kill everything. That's another bad thing. It's harder for pests that only target certain trees to get through a forest with diversity. Can you hear that? The snow's getting crunchy and the tires are throwing it up in the wheel wells. It sounds kind of nice. I just had to chisel the off-road light and the headlights. They had so much ice secreted on them. Because before we got up here to far northern Maine, we had to travel hours and hours on dirt roads that were muddy, and that spray just hardens all over the front, all over the undercarriage. Can't even open the back doors right now because there's so much built up mud that's frozen, and frozen mud is hard like concrete, not like ice. But the sun is strong in April, so if the sun is out and it's not cloudy, it will melt the road out, even if it's below freezing. And what happens is your undercarriage is dark in the shade. All that spray just keeps freezing and getting thicker and thicker. You see, they even got the graders out. They're ready. Whenever these roads melt out and the mud is gone, they're going to start grading. That's cool. I even saw some earlier in the week. They had flatbed trucks coming out, dropping all those things off. They don't really use graders for snow removal. Some companies do. They'll put a big plow on the front of it. But most of the companies have plow trucks. They bring those into the shop and work on them over the winter when there's not much else to do. The operators of them, a lot of them know how to work on their own machines, and they'll work on it throughout the winter. Then they ship them back out here before mud season starts, and then after mud season ends, they're already out there at the sites ready to go. When you're driving through snow, slush, and mud, you get a little worse gas mileage. Right now we're getting 13. Earlier we were getting 11 because it was muddier. Not the worst right now. When we were out here just a couple of days ago, we were actually getting 19 because the snow was beautifully packed. It hadn't really started melting yet, and there was less resistance. Hey, we're actually creating quite a storm of dust. The snow is so fine. Might have a good sunset. If it gets nice, I'll turn around and take a look at it. We're heading east right now, so it won't be in the view unless I turn around. There's also a lot of maple syrup farms up here. There's also a bunch of the commercial maple syrup farms, not just lumber up here, not just pulpwood. Lots, there's probably got to be hundreds of thousands of acres of maple syrup production. It takes over an hour to drive through some of those farms up here. Huge. Not as efficient as Vermont, though. There's a reason Vermont has the highest percentage of maple syrup in the country coming out of there. It's their terrain. It's actually perfect. There's lots of terrain there that's useless for most things. It's very steep, but that steep terrain with maple trees is great. You just put a bunch of hoses tacked to the trees going down to the sugar shack where it's boiled. Easy. Out here, it's a lot flatter in northern Maine, because Maine is overall pretty flat. There's a lot of foothills, smaller mountains. There's really not many big mountains except the Katahdin area, which is about 2.5 hours away from here in these conditions. That's really it. There's not a lot of mountainous stuff here like Vermont and New Hampshire. So that's why Vermont's good. Here, you'll be driving around through the maple farms and there's all these little tiny sheds with generators inside them. That's to run pumping stations. They'll have a couple acres of trees all draining into a low spot. And it has a float switch. When the float switch is activated, it turns on a pump and it pumps it uphill to the sugar shack. They have a lot of that up here. Little generator buildings, because there's no power out here in the wilderness. Someone's got to go around and keep filling those generators if they don't have their own tank. But by the looks of it, whoever's maintaining the sugar shack and maintaining the evaporators must be going out with gas cans. They're like little residential ones. They're not big generators or anything. They don't need a lot of power for these pumps. But yeah, there's generator sheds, or you'll see electrical wires just running along the forest floor going to them. You see a lot of stuff like that. Like one time out here in the middle of the wilderness, I was like, hey, why is there a power line tacked to the ceiling of this culvert while we were unclogging it? That's why. They had an actual, like, power line, the 240 volt power line that comes off the poles to your house. They had exactly that type of wire running through the culvert pipe, just tacked to the ceiling or screwed to the ceiling, something like that. That's why. There's also a lot of culvert pipes. You'll see hoses running through it. That's the syrup gets pumped through them. That's how they get it under the road. Or sometimes you'll see it high above the road. It'll look like a power line, but it's actually a black hose. Depends on the maple farm. A lot of these maple farms use clear hoses. I would think that they grow algae and become gross, but I guess not. I guess it's better to see what's in them instead of using black hoses. That would prevent that, but who knows? Black hoses might prevent a different kind of something. Because I know, like, inside the tubes of aquariums and ponds, there's algae and slime that grows in the dark. Maybe that's worse. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's a reason for it. This part of the road is actually perfect because it's so cold. There's not many frost heaves that we actually have to mark. An hour, or maybe even just a half hour down the road, it's gonna get bad. Right now we're next to a maple syrup farm. Do you see those hoses tacked to the trees and poles? A lot of those are 4x4. No, they're not. They're just, what's the word for it? Just posts made out of trees. They're not squared off or anything. But all those lines you see right there are pumped back. They're definitely being pumped because I don't think that's going downhill and completely. But that's really cool. There's a sugar shack coming up. This area, early April, is just starting their maple syrup production, while my area is just ending it. I think I might get a couple more weeks of boils, but a lot of the forecast is staying above freezing at night. You need that fluctuation to keep the trees flowing. You need that fluctuation to keep bugs away and stop algae from growing. It looks like whoever's maintaining it's using a snowmobile. I see snowmobile tracks going up in there. But that's all piped back to this giant stainless steel tank, and they have a huge propane evaporator inside of there in that shipping container. That's kind of cool. There was actually a shipping container sugar shack for sale on Facebook Marketplace last year for $4,000, which is actually an amazing price for something like that. But that's out of price range, and I don't have enough trees to warrant something like that. So we'll just keep our little operation going. Plus, if I actually wanted to start selling that stuff, we'd have to get liability insurance, because you know how people are today. Even if it's not your fault, if someone gets sick, they'll blame you. Or me being on YouTube, people who don't like the channel will purposely order it just to complain about it. So you gotta have liability insurance in this day and age. We We just passed over a snowmobile trail, if you saw that, but that's not a public snowmobile trail. I saw signs down there saying no trespassing, report suspicious activity, because that is food production. They don't want random people hanging out around that. We just passed by a swamp that used to be a beaver problem, but they fixed that a couple years ago, relocated it. Ooh, another log over there fell off the truck. That problem becomes way more abundant when we get into the areas with the frost heaves. Because right now, these are whiteout conditions. The log trucks literally can't see the frost heave. It all blends in. So that's what we're gonna do, get out and flag all the very abrupt ones. Like right now, there's some bumps in the road, but they're not super abrupt or anything. You'd be out here marking literally everything in sight if we were marking just individual things like this. But it hasn't been warm enough. Once this snow starts melting, refreezing in the road, it's gonna cause bumps everywhere until it's done melting. Maybe we'll see a moose. I'm hoping to see some moose. I saw one moose today. I got a shot of it, but it wasn't a very good shot. It was through the trees after it ran in the woods. If you want to moose watch in these areas, best time is in May. May, a lot of the mud season on the main arteries will be completed. Not on the back roads though, not the unplowed roads. Because the unplowed roads, all that snowpack is going to melt into the road, prolonging mud season. Mud season doesn't end until the ground is completely thawed. Because what causes mud season is the ground up here can freeze up to 6 feet thick. Okay, when it gets warm, let's say the top 2 feet of that melts. Snow melt and rain is in that, causing mud. Think of the ground still frozen 4 feet under as a gasket in the bottom of a pond or swimming pool, a liner, preventing it from sinking deeper in the ground. That's what mud season is. The surface mud and stuff literally can't drain. So that's why you can get very easily stuck in these roads. And don't be fooled. Always come prepared to be stuck. You could be driving on a dry, dusty road, but there could still be active groundwater and frost heaves deep below. And as you're driving on what appears to be a nice dry road, you could suddenly sink right into it and get stuck. That's why I have a winch. That has saved me literal thousands, probably literal tens of thousands in towing bills. I have literally had tow truck drivers tell me, hey, if I ever have to get you out of a place like that, you're gonna pay literal thousands. And then that's if I bring my pickup truck. If I have to bring a wrecker down those roads for some reason to get you out, it's gonna be tens of thousands to bring a wrecker down these type of roads to get someone out. And there's no one out here. There's no signal, so you need to be prepared to stay out here a very long time if you get stuck. But people are very nice. If someone does see you stuck in a ditch or in the mud, most people are gonna offer to pull you out. They might not have chains or tow straps, so make sure you have that in case somebody does offer to pull you out. I've pulled out quite a few people over the years out here. I always keep tow straps. You could help someone or someone could help you. I've been stuck before and I haven't had tow straps. People offer to pull you out, but they don't have them either. So you gotta make sure you have tow straps and the couplers. You don't want to just be tying a tow strap like a knot. If you do that, you have now created a single-use tow strap. You're never going to get that knot out. Boom, boom, boom. Always pay attention to people's ribbons. That's why we hang up ribbons. If you see ribbons hanging, pink or orange, it means a road hazard. Blue means the area floods or there's something wrong with the culvert, not necessarily a hazard. If there's a hazard and something wrong with the culvert, I'll put blue and one of the emergency colors up. Like, see that? We're driving by a blue ribbon right there. That's because something's wrong with the pipe, but it's not a direct hazard to the road. You're driving by it. All right. Let's turn the off-road lights on. No sunset, I guess, but the sky is turning a nice orange already. The tire plug from last week is still holding strong. We got a piece of sharp shale rock through my soft winter tires. For obvious reasons, I still have winter tires with studs on. Winter tires are soft, easy to puncture, but you want soft rubber to grip ice. I haven't switched over yet. I had to put 2 tire plugs in the one hole, it was so big, but thankfully I was able to plug in. It's right in the middle of the tread, so that can be professionally repaired by the tire shop when I do tire changeover. Probably in a month I'll put the mud tires back on. I find it ridiculous that the state requires you to take your studded tires off May 1st. Do they not realize there's areas of the state the growing season doesn't start until the middle of June? That means it can snow all the way up until that point. Sometimes laws are so disconnected in rural areas because it's created by the cities in the south of the state. Some of those lawmakers have no idea what happens up here. I personally believe there should be totally separate laws for the city and country. Canada gets it in some cases. Like, I know Ontario, you live in the city, you cannot have studded tires. You live in northern Ontario, yep, you can have them, and you're allowed to go into the city since you don't actually live there. It's just temporary. Now, they have those studded tire laws set up. What makes no sense is New Hampshire and Vermont, they're colder states. It doesn't get extremely hot there, so there's no risk of your winter tire exploding in the summer. Like, if you have winter tires which are softer, they'll literally melt if you drive down south in areas where it's well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. They'll literally melt and explode in those temperatures. Not made for that. Up north, you can leave them on year-round and it's not really a hazard if it doesn't get that hot. Average summer temperature in northern New England is mid-70s. It doesn't get that hot. Yes, occasionally we'll get days in the 90s. It's not very common though. So there's not really a risk of it exploding. Point is, New Hampshire and Vermont, you don't have to ever take them off. You can keep studded tires on year-round. They don't care. Why is Maine not like that? It's further north. Makes no sense. I feel like if your vehicle is registered in the top half of the state, or if you work in the top half of the state, it should not apply to you. It shouldn't apply to you. That should be a rule just for the cities. I like how Canada does that. Good thinking. Look at this. No, that wasn't very abrupt. Water's been crossing there. No damage to the rocky road surface. That's just a cut through the snowpack. We're on top of a lot of, we're actually probably on half a foot of packed snow that the plow can't get off just from heavy trucks packing it down. But anyways, I've made videos of driving down many snow-covered roads in the month of May, and you legally aren't supposed to have the studded tires on. For safety reasons, you should be able to, because in May, with all those temperature fluctuations, it's going to arguably cause more ice. And if you think about it, 90% of the time, the roads are down to blacktop. They're really only snow and ice covered after a storm. They're treated, then it's gone. So you're already driving on bare asphalt with your studs the majority of the time, and it does not damage the roads like you think. There's areas like Florida, you're not allowed to drive down there with studded tires. Of course, they have nice weather. They don't have to replace the roads very often. They can't let people do that. Up here, one winter, frost heave destroys the pavement. Yeah, New Hampshire and Vermont get it. They replace the roads so often, it doesn't make a difference. It's not like it's rougher where the tires are going. It's not like the tires are, grinding the road. It's just passing over. It's not scraping or anything unless you slam the brakes on. And people aren't really doing that with studs. But for that reason, I'll still carry the chains until the snow's completely gone. It's very rare when I have to chain up. I've never actually had to chain this truck up, but I do have the chains. My old car, I had to chain it up a couple of times just to get down severely icy roads after like a freezing rainstorm. There'll be somewhere I just want to go, so I got to put them on. This truck, I can only put full-size cleated tire chains on the rear. There's not enough clearance in the front when you go around corners. So the front, I have these independent ones that you So I'm sure a lot of people have seen the zip tie ice cleats. It'll be a plastic zip tie with metal spikes on it. You put that through your rim to get you out of a situation. That's temporary. Those will likely break a couple miles down the road. What I'm talking about is an actual chain that goes over the tire, and then through the rim is a ratchet strap. Those are meant for permanent use, like an actual tire chain. I like the idea of those, but I haven't had to use them. I've practiced putting them on, but I haven't actually had to use them. We must have carried at least 500 pounds of tire chains up to the Arctic. Never had to use them. Apparently those roads going up into Alaska and BC only get dangerous when the fluctuations in temperature melt the snow and flash freeze it at night. There's no time to put more gravel down over it, so it becomes icy. We didn't see a single mandatory chain up sign the entire time. Not one. This is the dangerous time of the year, when you have fluctuations freezing everything. But I think I got sidetracked. I think I started talking about moose earlier in the video. If anyone wants to see moose up here, the best time is in May. Once it starts getting warmer, even in April, or if you have warmer days in March, moose like it when it starts getting above freezing. That's when they seem to be very active. Once the snow disappears and it stays a bit above freezing, they seem to love that. They're very active. You can see dozens of them every night. May seems to be the best month for that. June too. But then once you start to get into the warmer summer, they don't like that. They all seem to retreat up into Quebec, and then they trickle back down the next winter. That's how it seems to be. We'll get, I'm sure, lots of moose footage come the month of May. I'll be sure to film a whole bunch of them. It sounds like I'm driving through water, but it's just it sounds like we're flicking up sleet, little ice pellets. You saw that one little spot right there? That's active groundwater. That's why that's not frozen. But I'd rather drive through snow than ice. You don't have to be as careful. I didn't expect to have so much snow up here again. No snow down where I live. None at all. Not one bit. This corner right here, to the left, that entire gully will fill up with water. It does every single year. There's actually no culvert there. The soil is just sandy enough during the warmer months when the ground's not frozen. It just never is a problem. But while the ground is still frozen, that whole gully floods and goes over the road. I think they just don't care because by that point, they're not really sending any trucks until it dries up. Had a long day on the road. We've already driven nearly 400 miles today. Most of that miles is on roads like this. We'll be out here for at least a couple more days. Not the worst. Getting decent traction. I'm gonna step out with you guys and we can take a look. The sky is actually getting pretty and we'll be able to listen for vehicles coming. It's so quiet out here, even parked around these corners, you'll hear someone coming. I need to mark something. I'll show you what we're marking. Yeah, the sunset does actually look very pretty. Check that out. Get a few still pictures of that. The reason I stepped out is because this is only gonna become a bigger hazard. It looks like somebody may have flagged it, but it fell over. I'm gonna tie a ribbon to that tree down to this with a few of them hanging on it. This is a little sinkhole. What causes that is the frost will push a big rock up and then before the rock falls back down, the groundwater is able to erode some sediment, making a big hole. Or in some cases, the rock will be up, sticking up, protruding really bad, where a small car, which I don't recommend they come down here, but they'll hit their oil pan really hard. I remember when I used to do this with a small SUV, the old RAV4 that lasted me 411,000 miles. We couldn't break it. I ended up actually selling it for just $1,000 because it started to need more maintenance. Nothing drivetrain related, just bearings and non-stop small things. So I ended up getting rid of it, sold it to someone who doesn't drive a lot. But yeah, I've hit quite a few things with my oil pan, and Toyota oil pans are awesome. It shot the front end of the vehicle up into the air multiple times, never broke the oil pan. Super hard hits, I thought I was done. Nope, never broke. But then, yeah, that happens because sometimes the rock will get lifted up, and instead of it eroding underneath it, it'll actually add sediment, and it can't go back down. And that's why every now and then you'll see a big boulder on the side of the road. They literally have to excavate it. But let me hang that up real quick. I'm just like leaning in here, and I'm like, what? I'm gonna have to fix my seat. So I was just leaning in here to grab my ribbon, and I accidentally pushing this button right here that moved the seat. I know this isn't my most popular type of video, but there is a good amount of people who like me to just leave it uncut like this, like a ride along of what I'm doing out here. So you see how I angled that really nice? Yeah, the ground there is a bit soft, so okay, let me fix this tripod. It's kind of loose. Yeah, I angled it like that so it's extremely visible. I do expect when the ground starts thawing again, that's gonna get screwed up. That stick it's attached to that someone jammed in the hole is frozen right now. When that thaws, that'll likely get dislodged and fall out. But the ribbons will still remain there, so people will know there's some sort of hazard to look out for. But if we find a hole like that that's unmarked already, no stick in it, we gotta walk into the woods, find a stick. Okay, that's a pretty bad one. You saw what we just ran over. So, in this direction, we have to put up a warning for that frost heave. If I was going fast, the speed limit here is 45 miles an hour, or that is about 75 kilometers an hour. If someone hits that at that speed, or a log truck, logs are gonna fall off that. So we gotta put a warning this side now. Approaching that triangular thing is close enough. We don't have to put one on the other side. If I keep this video going long enough, you're gonna see ones that are so horrible things will go flying in here, and because the road is whiteout conditions, you can't see them coming. Neither can the big trucks, so that's what we're out here doing. Anything abrupt is gonna get flagged severely. That one wasn't that bad, so just one ribbon there. We'll make nice triangular shaped things like we did back there at the really bad one. So we gotta keep our speed up, sort of. We don't mark potholes, there's a lot of those around. They're not too abrupt. But the big frost heaves that can really bounce logs out of trucks is what we are out here to mark. So I want to try to keep my speed around 30 or 50 kilometers an hour. That's how you really detect these. Another log over there. Oh, 2 of them fell out of a truck. How though? It may have got loosened up by those bumps. See someone else flag something. But sometimes you don't know why. I will never take down someone else's ribbons because maybe they see something I don't. But my own ribbons, I will absolutely take them back down because frost heaves, the majority of those will recede on their own. And they'll all be taken care of when the grader comes through. You'll see there's some bad ones coming up here. We might not see another vehicle all night. Oh, that wasn't bad. I like working out here. It's so quiet. There's literally more moose out here than people. Okay, ooh, that's a big one. And I'm gonna mark it better. See, someone else marked it. You can't see that. I'm only doing 30. Log trucks will be going faster than me because the weight gives them better traction. But of course, if they did lose control, it's gonna be bad. All right, we need to mark this better, way better. Because you see, I didn't see those ribbons quick enough to feasibly stop. You see, I barely stopped before hitting that. You think something that weighs 200,000 pounds is gonna stop? And yes, those trucks do weigh 200,000 pounds. A street legal semi-truck is 80,000 pounds or 100,000 pounds because they have the extra axles. These log trucks all have 22 wheels, extra axle. But they're double wide, sometimes stacked over 18 feet tall. Yeah, they can be up to 200,000 pounds. If I can't stop a vehicle that weighs 4,000 pounds, it's gonna be bad for them. So that's what we're here to do. We'll probably be out here till midnight doing this. It's fun. Hey, there's moose tracks out here. All right, we marked that a lot. For the direction in front of us, at least. But there's a problem. You know what the problem is? The other direction, there's a corner right here. Those trucks will never stop before they hit that. So now we gotta back up actually, and we gotta put a couple ribbons right before this corner alerting about that. Ah, come on, don't beep. You know what I need to buy? Internet AI definitely spies on me. I keep getting ads for this seatbelt thing you plug in there to trick it into thinking you got your seatbelt on, because we just keep getting in and out. I'm not gonna keep doing that. We are ready today. I got 2 12-pack cases of pink. Plug in the camera there. Here we go. All right, there's early warning for the truck coming up this hill right before it hits that corner. And when I'm out like that, you would hear anything out here going through this crunchy snow. So I don't have to really worry about spinning it around this time of year. That's fun. That's a little slippery. All right, so the early warning ribbons are for trucks taking this right here. All right, we're gonna hit it with some speed. Big frost heave. Look at all our ribbons. Nice and noticeable. That bump right there is gonna knock logs off trucks. They're gonna be going faster once this snow melts and it's down to dirt. Those frost heaves are gonna remain there probably into June. Then we'll take some of those ribbons down. We intentionally use cheap ribbons. These ribbons we have right here. Here's another bad one. Not that bad. These ribbons right here fade. They're not UV resistant. The blue ones I have are UV resistant. They'll be there for years until whatever water problem is corrected. These will fade and turn white because the hazards will almost all be gone in June. So you want cheaper ribbons that fade very easily. I think this summer or something, I want to put myself through an actual CDL school. I was learning up here to drive one of the big trucks, but the boss just doesn't have enough time to give me the hours I really need, so I think I'm going to put myself through a school. I've been having issues putting myself through a school because in a rural area it's very hard to find a school. So I'm going to have to probably take the written exam again because my CDL permit's about to expire. It's not a big deal. It doesn't cost a lot, and I'm confident I'll pass it. I passed it with 90% last time. I'll be good. I honestly thought it was like a driver's one, Class D. Those permits go for like 3 years. Found out in Canada they go for 10 years. But you only get 180 days with a CDL permit. I really would love somebody to invent a type of marking ribbon that is 100% biodegradable, because these ribbons, the majority of these things that get put up are not going to get taken down. As far as I can see, it doesn't exist. Or maybe it doesn't exist because it wouldn't be good enough. It'd probably fall apart too early. I'm not sure. That one wasn't that bad, but it was something. The trucks won't be going as fast around these corners. There will be some really bad ones coming up. Ooh, that already froze. That was liquid water when we came through here a couple hours ago. What about this? Nope. Some things look like they're about to be big bumps, but they're not. Could become. New frost heaves literally pop up every day. Ooh. Is that another free fire pit? Usually when they discard a tractor trailer rim, it means it has a big dent. And that's steel. Can't use aluminum ones, they'll melt. Let's go see. Is that tractor trailer rim something I want? It's hard to get those. I don't have a crowbar, so I'm not taking the whole tire. Oh, I really wish I could have that. Without a pry bar, you're not getting that tire off, and I don't want to put that whole thing in here. That's a cool one. That's an old Dayton rim. Not split rim. Don't get those confused. A lot of people get those confused. The dangerous one, the split rim, means you have two half moons welded together, and it can literally break apart over bumps. I should flag that one. It can break apart over bumps. A Dayton rim means the center of it comes out. You see on older trucks it looks like a star. Those can be dangerous too. You want to slightly loosen them. Hit each one with a hammer to make sure the pins aren't under tension, because they can fly off and kill people. They're dangerous if you don't know how to work with them, but otherwise they're pretty safe. It's the same kind of wheels we changed when we did the video working on our military generator trailer. It's got Dayton rims. But the point is, there's no lug holes. It's just a round circle. That's perfect for a fire pit. Who knows, maybe it'll be out here in a couple weeks. We'll bring a crowbar. Those tires often stay out here a while, but the rims, I gotta say, they disappear fast. Especially this time of year, and until mud season's over. I said they only run the trucks at night. You know what would show up better that I need to suggest these companies start using. They have flagging tape, any color you want, pink, orange, but it's got reflective lines through it, so it really will flutter and pick up. Never seen that used out here. I've seen ribbons with black lines, you know, it looks like caution marks, but never seen it. I've seen it online and it's a bit expensive, but if these companies were to buy it by like the 1,000, I bet it would be cheaper. So for me, if I buy ribbon out of my own pocket for roads I'm not technically working on, one roll of this pink ribbon goes for $7 something at the Home Depot, so probably like $9 after taxes. One roll. Now, I can go on Amazon and you can get a pack of a dozen rolls for 20 bucks. Get it online. It's way cheaper than anything you can buy in the store. Plus, for some reason, I can't believe it, you cannot buy blue ribbon in person. I don't know why. It seems like a common color for marking utilities and stuff. You cannot buy blue ribbon. I've never seen it in a Home Depot or any in-person location. That's a bad one. I don't know why. You can buy green, yellow, which indicates sewer and gas, but you can't buy water. I don't know why. That's a pretty bad one. That might be a culvert that's rusted out, eroding sediment, or a crushed garbage plastic. I think it's a culvert. I don't think it's a frost heave, but we gotta mark it. Not a good spot here to really hang ribbons, but I got one slightly off screen on that side too, and it's around a corner, so not great. But around corners, you're not going to be driving as fast. So if the branch is smaller than your pinky, real quick, you only have to tie it once. It never comes undone. If it's a thicker one, you got to tie it twice. Never had them fall down. I've had them broken before too. When you're out flagging actual trees through the woods, like tying it around the trunk, red squirrels love to chew those and knock them all down. Not to a severe degree, but they will chew on them out of curiosity. It's not like they'll knock them all down, but they'll chew it. Especially in the winter when they're very hungry, they'll give anything a try. I've had mice and random stuff eat candles. I've had them eat all kinds of things you wouldn't even think of. Weird things. Things that are even supposed to repel them, I've had them eat. Like people always say for pests, use Irish Spring and stuff. Mice will literally eat that. I've had that happen when I tried it. This is a straightaway. You could pick up quite a bit of speed here. Okay. I'm trying to think where I want to do this. Okay. Back us up like that. Probably a little more picky than I need to be. But coming down this hill, could be bad. Some of these frost heaves, a lot of them actually are going to get worse before they get better. What was that? Oh, my sunglasses on the dash. Okay, one. Okay, we're going to put a few more ribbons up right here. Snowshoe hare, which is technically not a rabbit, but looks like one, has been booming in population in my opinion. I see their tracks absolutely everywhere. At my house, out here in the wilderness too, always seeing snowshoe hare tracks. Alright, can we make a full turn? I see some active groundwater on the edge of the road. When these start thawing out, you don't want to pull all the way over. You get stuck on the edges. If you pull over, even letting someone pass, you gotta pull over very slowly, testing the ground. Alrighty, I've got those marked. They will probably get worse before they get better. Shut you off. That's usually not a problem. That's lane keep assist. Thinks I crossed over the yellow line, but it's just seeing the tire marks in the road. I had a lot of fun splashing through puddles earlier too. I don't think we'll see any of them on the way back. They're all going to be frozen. Because right now, throughout this whole video, we're going down in elevation. Snow is just going to get less and less. So the heaves are going to be getting worse and worse. Just wait. Oh, logs fell off right there. Why'd they fall off? What'd he hit? There's usually logs when there's a frost heave nearby. I don't see one. That season hasn't even begun yet. Eventually it'll get to the point where you're seeing literally thousands of logs every day along the edges of these roads over a course of 100 miles. They pick them all up at the end of the year. Hey, is that the moon coming out up there? Hey, they did say that I think today or tomorrow there's supposed to be a pink moon if it's clear. A pink moon. I did get a couple pictures of the lunar eclipse like a month back. But there's gonna be pink this time. It does help keep me company even just talking to the camera like this. A lot of these companies have problems hiring employees because of the isolation. And the isolation feared because there's no signal or anything. You're on your own to deal with anything that could go wrong, so you got to carry extra parts. Lots of tire plugs, multiple spare tires, just in case. Water purification, MRE meals, lots of extra fuel. starting to get warmer. Before the berries grow, the bears are going to be very hungry. Ooh. Whoa. Boom. We hit that slow and that was abrupt. See, that's what we need to mark. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Where do I want to mark this? I want to have a little bit of an early warning, sort of. It's straight enough that maybe we don't need that. What am I smelling? This area absolutely stinks. It smells like sulfur. What am I smelling? This is probably the worst one of the night. It's still too early to do culvert inspections because of the snow banks, so I can't really tell you why it's that bad. It's definitely culvert related. It could be a compaction issue. It could be a plastic pipe crushed, because plastic pipes, at least half of them fail the first winter because these roads are damp. The frost expands into them. Metal ones can deflect it, usually. If it's a metal pipe, it means it's rusted out and eroding sediment. Could be compaction. There's a reason up north they install culvert pipes a year before they repave the road. It allows winter to help settle it. Then they repave it so it doesn't sink. Could be. More moose tracks. Be nice to see a moose tonight, even if it's just one running away. I always get comments saying it adds creepy vibes to the video, or sometimes if you have a moose running away down the road, some people say it looks like someone riding a bicycle because their hooves are lighter in color. That's all you can see. The way they're galloping, it looks like pedals going around. These roads this time of year get checked by me personally every other week. But there's lots of other workers. If something really bad comes up, we'll flag it. Like, there's lots of hazards out here. They're already flagged. And then there's ones I'm like, hey, why didn't the person that flagged this flag this? That's why it's good to have multiple opinions on these really bad ones. Okay, this is a straightaway. You only have to like put it above the pipe. You only need early warnings if it's around a corner. right. Should be good and visible from each direction. Let's see what else we got. Dead out here in the winter. Most animals are hunkered down. You really only see hares and rabbits. That's the most common thing to see up here in the winter. Maybe a coyote. We saw a fox earlier today. That'll be added to the daytime video, edited version. Frost heaves always occur in the same spot every year. Until whatever's causing it is eliminated, it's never going to stop. Usually groundwater on these roads. But also these roads can be from surface water too. Especially when the ground is still frozen, it'll crack like asphalt, the surface of the frozen road. Water gets in there, makes it worse. It'll only lift up one part or the other. It'll be bad. Little bumps like that, it's not going to really hurt the log truck. You don't even feel that in a loaded truck. They run a lot smoother when they're loaded. Especially something like this. If you have a big frost heave along a hill where they really get going, because they really will get going to save the brakes. Hoping we'll get to film some of them up early enough tomorrow because they run until 10 a.m. A lot of those trucks sound really awesome. There's a good amount of them that are straight pipe too. They real loud going down the road. Like I made a video of one where I actually thought it was like the old Detroit engines, but my comments corrected me. No, that is not a Detroit engine you're hearing. That's a straight piped Caterpillar for slightly better fuel efficiency. Because those trucks, they don't have catalytic converters or anything. It's just for noise. But you know what, if you think about it, a noisy truck is a good thing out here. There's no one around, and it'll make the moose and stuff get out of the road, having something really loud coming by. It's not a good scene when a log truck hits a stubborn moose that won't move out of the way. I've seen areas up here on the highway where there'll be a streak of blood like a quarter mile down the highway. And not because the truck didn't take that long to, it's just people driving through it. That's why all the trucks up here have big bars on the front of them, so it doesn't damage the truck. Does hit something like that. These roads, as you can see, there's no really traffic out here. It's really only the employees coming and going. I think turkey hunting season might be now. You sometimes see some hunters. You really see hunters out here. You'll see hundreds of people throughout the day with orange hats if you come out here in like October. Deer and moose hunting season. That's when you'll see a lot of them. That wasn't bad. Thought it was. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we gotta stop for that one. Okay, let me think. Did we just go around a corner that needs to be advanced? Think about that. I don't think it was a bad corner that we should mark like that. That's a bad one. Okay. Time to get out. Okay, I only put them on that side around the corner because no one's going to be able to see the inner side of the corner. That's a pretty bad one. You wouldn't believe how many comments I get calling me an evil person for helping logging companies destroying the forest. This area was logged well over 100 years ago originally, and any massive tree up here, I believe, was taken by the King of England hundreds of years ago, if it was over a certain diameter. So this was a very long time ago. This is now a tree farm. Whoa, a moose! We saw a moose, yay! Gotta make sure there's not a baby following it. There could be. Moose aren't usually as bad as deer. It's very rare when they just jump out. That was actually strange. That's only happened to me a few times. You may have seen the video where it looks like I hit the moose, but I actually don't think so. Like, you hear things flying inside the car, but there was no hit. I got out, the muddy bumper wasn't even, grazed off. My comments think that I just scared it, and that's why it fell over and then it ran off. I don't think I hit it. There was not a single mark in the mud on my bumper. It would have scraped a little off. I don't think we hit it. That was a very close call if you've seen that video. And I ended up making a joke out of it. In the one where I'm collecting the moose pellets and stealing them, selling them online, because you can buy weird manures on Amazon for house plants or just to keep as a novelty, even rhino poop, weird things. So I made a joke out of that, and I can't believe I got a comment saying how wrong that was of me to involve that moose into my prank video. No, that's literal dash cam footage. I don't know what people think. That's not... That happened before I made the joke. I'm not gonna intentionally speed up, and you can see in that video the moose, it's just its butt. I don't see it. It's facing into the woods, and at the last moment it turns around and darts into the road. We got another one. This is not actually a frost heave. That is water eroding through the top layer. There's packed snow. That's not damage to the road. I don't know why someone marked it with just blue. Yes, it's a water hazard, and that's important, but it's also a major road hazard. If somebody hits that... What was I just talking about? Okay, I'll talk about that in a minute. I gotta keep that on my brain. All right, good. So what I was saying is, I get a lot of comments complaining about how you're helping a logging company. What you got to keep in mind is, most farms in the United States that aren't in the desert, like the Midwest, they used to be forest. All cut down. Literal entire states worth of trees cut down for farming. This is literally a farm. This is how people build their houses. This is how sustainable lumber and paper products come to be. And I guarantee most of those people are hypocrites, because 60% of my viewers are from the United States, 18% are from Canada, and the majority of the housing is stick-built. So, hypocrites. This is being done in a sustainable way. The ecosystem is already, you're never getting the ancient ecosystem back. So what you have is what it is. Moose, deer, bear actually benefit from these open clearings, because until the trees grow back, you now have these 100-acre squares everywhere of berry bushes that actually causes certain animals to boom in population. Another argument by people. The population of things like deer are much higher than they would typically be without people, because you got all these open farms with food, you have all these tree clearings that grow berry bushes, blueberry bushes, all kinds of stuff in there. That grazing land too. Grass grows in there until it gets shaded out by the trees. So it creates a huge population boom. So then the state will naturally hand out more hunting permits. That's how it works. Like, I know over the years I've had lots of arguments like that in my comment section. I'm always willing to debate with the comment section. I'm willing to accept other people's views, but if you're gonna outright call me names about it, no, I don't like that, but I'll take the argument and talk about that. Like up here, this is just a crop. Me personally, if I see old growth getting cut down, I don't like that in this day and age. I don't think that should be even being done. It does unfortunately still get done in certain areas, especially in rainforests. But those are in countries you're never going to convince them not to do it. But areas like this is all sustainable. And then there's like groups of people trying to protect the forest from the logging companies, and well, what you're protecting, that's not old growth. No, it's really not. And protecting a tree farm, yes, if it grew back naturally after being cut, it's pretty healthy. But if you're protecting like a literal monoculture, that's not good for the environment at all. In fact, a monoculture where they plant the trees close together to harvest efficiently, if you don't cut those down, they'll start dying off, just like I have on my property. Most of my balsam fir trees were planted by the logging company in the 70s, and they have reached their 40-year benchmark. Because they're not being cut down, they're overcrowding and dying. That's why I'm constantly having huge blowdowns of trees, because the logging company sold it as residential, and they're never coming back for those trees. So we are slowly having to cut them down. We're slowly having to manage it and let other things grow back in their place. But that's where things come from in the modern world. A lot of people don't understand that, but I do also get compliments all the time saying I explain it very well. And technically, a lot of these companies actually offset their emissions perfectly. We gotta get that one. They offset their emissions perfectly because most of these products, these timber products, are never going to actually get burned or anything. They're in houses, furniture, paper products that get flushed down toilets and then end up as manure and stuff. It's never actually gonna, get burned up. So they do say that for the amount of fuel the equipment uses, it is offset by the forestry products. When we get out there, that's a pretty bad one. You can even visually see that. I'm not proud of that marking job. There's not a good amount of options. There's nothing to tie it to and bring it down to make a triangle. That is a corner, but those ribbons I just hung up can be seen. That's a straightaway right around there. Most of the trucks are traveling in the opposite direction that we are in this video. I just slightly every now and then pause the camera, but this is a unedited video. Those pauses are happening live. I just pause when we go by signs that say the company that manages the land, because there's a lot of, it's the internet. If someone sees a phone number on the side of a log truck, they go ahead and call it. They see a company name, they search it up and start calling it. And I don't need my boss to have more harassment like that, but that's how I got into this. I had someone saying I was causing malicious damage to the pipes. And then the logging boss goes out of his way to figure out who I am. And it was quite scary. You got this guy who pulls up when I'm next to a culvert. He gets out and he steps out of his truck and he instantly says, "So you're the guy who's been effing with all my culverts." And he said it very sternly, like he was angry, but he was joking. Yep, we're not forgetting that. There's a bunch of them there, so I need to not flag each one individually because they're so close together. But that's how I met him. Unfortunately, he's almost 60 years old and he's about to retire, maybe even next year. He thinks he might go to 2030, but he says while he's still in good condition, he wants to move back to his home state, which is Texas. He's done with the cold at that age, and he still wants to have maybe 20 years left in his life to start up some kind of thing down south, or start like a homestead down there where it's warm. He's tired of the cold. There's literally people like that in the world that think I'm horrible for removing beaver dams from culverts. And I'll oftentimes respond to them in the comment section saying, okay, we will kindly leave your road flooded so you can't get out. Some people don't realize ripple effects. Some of those same people would probably greatly complain about a roll of toilet paper costing $20. That's an exaggeration, but the more damage to these roads that occurs, it will ripple down like that to different products, especially on years when they have to fix huge washouts. Like, I remember one year, this was like a literal maze one year because there was so many washouts. You couldn't even navigate these roads. It was so horribly bad. You had to keep turning around and finding detours. We haven't had a year like that in a while. I kind of miss it. I love flagging washouts and putting up signs, road is closed, so-and-so distance ahead, so people don't waste their time driving down roads thinking they are going to connect. Because there's no road closures. Google doesn't update anything. You can't even use maps out here unless you have satellite. I don't use that stuff. I don't want to pay for a satellite phone plan. Alright. Right here. So you can see it before you go around the corner. I gotta put another one up because there's some bad frost heaves going down that hill. Alright, here we go. I gotta start banging my boots off before I come in here. I got a puddle forming on my floor mat, and I don't want that to spill underneath there because that's how you rust out floors in vehicles. Alright, so truck sees that, knows to slow down because something's coming up. Here we go. Boom, boom. Yep, that's not good for a truck to hit. Here's another one. Where's my other ribbons? Oh, we've just passed them in the other direction, and I thought I did some further up. Alright, this road's gonna start getting bad quickly. Because I said we're going down in elevation as we travel in this video. That's why it's starting to get a little slushier, more than solid. You can tell it's a little warmer here. Another big hill. If there's one along this hill, we got to go back up to the top and put up ribbons, early warnings. Yeah. Yep, we got to go back up this hill. Yep. There's another big one down here at the bottom, so... Alright, that one's marked by someone else. We can leave that one alone. Boom, boom. Oh, logs. You see that? There's logs right there. Those fell out of the truck because of this. Okay. So, no one's going to be going fast right here, but I'm going to put a ribbon up because you see there's one literally right behind there. So no one should be going super fast, but I'm going to put a couple up right here. There's not really anything good to attach it to, but we'll put one on that little tree. What's the scariest creature you think out here? The official most dangerous animal in Maine is the moose. They're very dangerous and they're unpredictable, but I've never had one actually go after me. I've had ones give me a warning. They'll put their head low to the ground and scuff their legs as if they're gonna charge. You listen, you turn around and walk away slowly, but keep your eye on them just in case. I've had warnings from moose. I also last year, I believe it was late April. Yeah, it had to have been late April. It was right before we had the rental pickup truck. We had a bear try to break into the truck. Not violently, but it was like touching the car. So I'm sleeping in the back seat, reach up, hit the horn. 20 minutes later, he's back. So I moved at least 20 minutes down the road. Then got a good night's sleep. Bears are hungry this time of year, right when they come out of hibernation. I think right after this heavy off-road season, we're going to change the transmission fluid again. This truck recommends it every 30,000 miles. The last time I did it was probably 18,000 ago, right before we drove up to the Arctic with the little camper. So that's a lot of stress. So right after this, we'll probably be right before 30,000. We're gonna do it again. All right, I gotta put something up here right before this hill. Where though? Let me back up. Maybe there's something I just missed. We gotta put something up here for early warning. Yeah. Sometimes it's just hard to find somewhere where you can put up a nice triangular angled ribbon. We're really steep right here. I gotta keep my ears open. I don't like parking over a hill like this. Alright, they're back in. That's actually a good one. That worked out. Gas prices are up this year. Went from $2.40 up here in this area to about, it's now about to hit $4 a gallon. Not bad compared to the West Coast, but that's because of all the stupid environmental taxes. Last year was great. Canada was always like California prices, and they got rid of all their environmental taxes last year, so that was great when we drove up north. But now that the prices are back up, I was planning on doing the opposite of the Arctic trip where we saw -70. I was planning on doing the opposite, which would have been going to the southwest when it's like 130. That would have been cool. Because that's the most expensive gas in the country, I will not be doing that trip unless those prices go down. We'll wait for another year or something. But I was planning on doing the opposite, but that's officially canceled right now because the fuel's so much right now, and yeah. But maybe someday. Can't afford it right now until those prices go back down. But I do have friends from the south that tell me, like, hey, Louisiana, our prices didn't even budge because all the refineries, like in Texas and stuff, they don't really, those areas don't use foreign fuels, so the prices stayed exactly the same despite all the prices up here going crazy. So maybe I do got to go to the south, not the southwest, but I guess I got to go down like Texas. I've never been there before. There's moose tracks out there. Everywhere we get out tonight, there seems to be moose tracks. All right, we're not going to put it on the inner corner because you don't really see that, but you see I made like a little triangle. I chose a deep tree on each side with one close to the road in the middle. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but those are moose tracks. Those are not human footprints. They're as big as human footprints, just about, but it's moose. They usually walk slow and steady unless they're scared. So that's why they're close together. I remember the highest gas price I ever paid was, I think, $6 something back in 2021. The cheapest I ever paid was $1.20 something, but I think I had 10 cents off because I had the membership card. It was Big Y gas station in Chicopee, Massachusetts. I was able to fill my tank for like 10 bucks. That was nice. Ooh, a snowshoe hare! That's what that was. As soon as the weather starts getting warmer, they'll shed that and turn brown. Bridge coming up, slow, 15 miles an hour. 15 miles an hour, just in case you came across another vehicle around this corner. You both have the chance to slow down. At night, it's not as dangerous because you'd see the headlights of the other vehicle, especially in the snow. There's signs everywhere. Do not stop on that bridge. People don't realize these are privately owned roads. And there's huge trucks that cannot stop if you're stopped on that bridge like that. Well, actually, if they're going 15 miles an hour, they should. But to be honest with you, a lot of the vehicles up here are not going that slow. A lot of them are speeding on these roads. And log trucks have the right of way in northern Maine. You must pull over and give them space because they're overloaded trailers. All right. How are we doing up here with the camera? 100% battery. That did charge. Nice. I use these 200 watt superchargers. It'll charge a modern smartphone in under an hour if it's dead. I love them. People say that supercharging the battery damages it over time. I've done it for years. Never really noticed anything different. I've always had phones, you know, as soon as you get a new phone, you're like, wow, the battery lasts twice as long because, you know, you just got used to it. But it doesn't seem to deteriorate it any more than a slower charger. Like most vehicles, the charger it comes with stock from the factory, they suck. They're horrible. In fact, I recently had to get rid of a lot of my old power banks because these new phones consume more power than they put out. These new phones use a lot, especially if you leave them recording while plugged in. You gotta have a good charger. And the superchargers are great too for charging like those huge flashlights. You try to charge a big flashlight with like a 30 watt charger, it's gonna take literally all day. Okay, what about this? Yeah, that could be bad if someone's going fast. Okay. I'm thinking where I'm gonna put it in this direction. We definitely have to go back and put one over there. Alright, this is a good straightaway, so that gives me a good perspective of where I'm going to put it. See those big rocks sitting there? Those big rocks likely got pulled out of the road with an excavator after frost found them and brought them up. Okay, turn around. I'm going to put one right here. Good early warning before the corner begins. good early warning in this direction. All right, where's that frost heave? There it is. Perfect. Early warning for around this corner. All right, now where are we gonna put the other one? Yeah, we'll put it right here. Okay. Gotta listen carefully. I don't like parking around corners. We might just have to take out a brand new roll for the next one if we gotta mark it like that. You can hear stuff from super far away. I know times I've camped out here, you can hear Jake brakes sometimes 20 minutes before they show up. There's no noise pollution at all out here. It's awesome. Love that. And they'll be using their Jake brakes loud and clear in places like this. But now we got good early warning for a frost heave around a corner. Frost heaves around a corner are also really bad for your suspension. If you're turning, bad for ball joints and stuff. You can break them easily. If you gotta hit a bump, always try to make sure your steering wheel is as straight as possible if you have to hit a bump. One time I hit a frost heave sideways so bad it didn't break. Oh look, a log fell off, probably caused by that. One time I hit it one so hard while turning. You know what it did? It didn't damage anything, but it messed up my steering wheel. The steering wheel was crooked going straight. Not a big deal. I don't know how to fix it personally, but the tire shop fixed it in literally a couple minutes. Wasn't a big deal. I was afraid I broke something else, but nope, no big deal. What's that? Oh, it's just a shadow. You never know. Here, when I used to use my old car, a lot of loggers thought I was crazy, but I never broke it. I used to carry 6 gasoline cans, which could fill my 12-gallon tank 3 times, because I never let it get completely empty. I wasn't going to deal with that anymore. Gas cans occasionally spilling in your bed, because they were all in the back seat or passenger seat, spilling if you go over a bump. Absolutely hate that. Turn around for that one. Absolutely hated that. That's why this truck, I got rid of the spare tire beneath the back and we added a 55-gallon tank, which is 3 times as big as the stock tank. This truck on these type of roads has at least a 600-mile range, when typically it would probably only have a 200-mile range, because you use a lot more fuel driving through snow and mud. But in good conditions like the pavement, I can make it all the way down to at least North Carolina, probably further if I'm very careful with the accelerator. Where is the frost heave? If I'm careful with the accelerator, I can, okay, I see it. I can usually go much further. You definitely get more of an 800-mile range. Okay. Whoa, what did I do there? Okay. Let's see what I did there. I didn't put it in park right there. Okay, wait a second. Got another roll. Look at the difference in size. I think we might burn up the other one. I gotta stop looking into the headlights walking back. It's frying my vision. Okay. I didn't think we were gonna have enough to span that. I think I would have. So that's why I span this larger one with the new roll, and then I used up the old roll with the dangling pieces. Okay, continuing. Now, clearly, my boss does not own 100 miles of road like we're covering now. But whoever's using these roads, because they're shared rights of way for logging, is the one who maintains it. Even if it's not being used by the company, if I come across some kind of hazard, I don't care whose property it's on, if it's something that the public's allowed on or somebody's using, I'm gonna flag it. I even flag bad frost heaves on paved roads. If it's helping people out, it's fine. You know, some towns will have a problem with you spray painting potholes, but what we're doing is not anything permanent. Nothing. It's not going to get on people's tires. It's not going to do anything. It's just a ribbon hanging by the road. I'll hang them up on paved roads on my way up here. If I hit something abrupt and things go flying in here, I'm turning around. Absolutely going to turn around and flag that. Gravity is all that's holding the logs on those trucks. Now, yes, they do throw a cable up over the top. That is keeping the very top logs from falling off. That's all that's doing. If all those logs want to suddenly move, that's not going to stop. And as the truck's moving, it wiggles some of them free and they fall out. That one cable you see over the top of a log truck only keeps things in on smooth roads. That's all that is. It's clearly, like, some of these videos you see, they're all over the side of the road. The logs. We'll probably continue this a little longer. Puddles. Ooh, spring on it. Another one. Yeah, I better stop doing that or I'm gonna have to get out and clean the headlights. It's cold enough, that instantly will freeze to literally everything on the front of the vehicle. Everything. Even the passenger side wiper's not working because that ice gets into the spring, the tensioner for the wiper blade. So it's not cleaning anymore until it defrosts. And because it's like inside of the wiper arm, you can't just break it out of there. You gotta spray it with something. Like I have RV antifreeze, which is environmentally safe in spray bottles that helps clear that up. It's the same stuff you put in your plumbing pipes. Residue's not gonna hurt you if you drink it. Don't drink the whole thing, obviously, but diluted, it's not dangerous like car antifreeze. Car antifreeze is really dangerous for animals and children. It smells sweet like sugar. Everything that melted slightly during the day is all thawing, or I mean freezing back up now. Brake check. That felt slippery. These roads will become very active in a matter of 5 hours with big trucks. But I'll probably be sleeping by then. I'm gonna hopefully wake up early and film some of them for our edited version. Camera has not shut off in the past 2 hours. Not edited. What's that? Oh no! I was a broken tree. I thought that was enough to make a log fall off, but then I was like, that wasn't that bad. I'm not gonna stop for that one. That wasn't that bad. Not abrupt. Overall, the frost heaves this year, I'm either just being careful or... Because sometimes you always hit ones that make you hit the stop blocks. Your springs and shocks completely compress. I haven't hit any of them today. None. None that bad. That's fun. That's worth getting out to scrape off if it gets bad. That's just too much fun. We gotta do that. We won't get to do that for another 6 months soon. No, we won't get to do that for literally another year soon. You're not gonna have puddles like that when it starts snowing. You gotta wait until next spring. That's too much fun to not do. Yeah, I think I gotta get that one. It's not the worst, but I do need to at least just hang up a couple single ribbons. Hey, there's a blue ribbon there. What's that one for? Maybe notifying the grader guy that, hey, this area is kind of soggy, or that drainage ditch might need to be done, because once summer comes along, a lot of Maine has porous soil, very sandy. You won't notice these water issues, so you have to mark them and make sure they're known now, so they can be properly fixed during the summer when they're not a problem. All right, where was that frost heave I just hit? Was that it? I don't know if that was it. I don't think that was it. That could have been it. I'll backtrack for a moment. I don't think that was it. It had to be. That wasn't even that bad. It had to have been that. I didn't drive that far since I got that. Later when the log trucks start running, they're gonna be like, oh, he was out here today, look at all these turnaround marks. Most of the workers who hang up these ribbons do it as they go. They're not constantly backtracking like this. But I want to do a very thorough job. put them up in the proper situations. Okay, where was that? Maybe it's not even that bad if I can't even recognize it. I'm gonna flag it. Yeah, it could potentially, get a little worse over the coming weeks. Things like this usually get worse before they get better. I used to do that. I gotta start doing that more often. You see what I did there? That V shape is not going down to a branch. I just tied a little stick to the bottom of it, so it's like a weight. It'll stop the wind from wrapping it up where you can't really see it. I used to do that. I forgot I used to do that method. Maybe I can apply that more today. So if there's a good tree, good branch to hang something on, a single ribbon in the wind can wrap up where you can't even see it. So if there's nothing to anchor it to on the ground, or even another branch, I used to just wrap it around a stick hanging there. Then it'll never get where it's not visible. I gotta apply that more, because just the single hanging ribbons, usually not. I'd say only maybe 10% of the time you'll come back and it'll be completely wrapped up like it's back on the roll of tape. Alright, look at this. We got some heaves right here. Alright, so we did that back there. That should notify anyone to slow down. We gotta put another one up right here for this direction. Yeah, perfect. We got a baby tree right there on the ground. I'll show you what I'm doing. Good night. The snowbank is nice and hard. I'm not sinking into it. No problem. Here we go. Good warning for the other direction. Most trucks will be heading the other direction. Not all. Different companies send them to different mills. Out here pretty much is just hundreds of tiny little logging companies, and they all sell it to just a handful of larger mills. Oh man, there's some more here. Oh wow, that was a bad one. We gotta mark that. Early warning, because that was really bad. We're gonna put it around this corner on the outskirts. I gotta be careful. It looks like oh wow, there's a big heave here too. So this will be a warning for multiple things. Yep, we gotta put something else up here. Those are really bad. Here we go. There's a good amount of warning time, so it doesn't have to be super. Not a very sharp corner. Time flies when you're making a video and having fun. I love making videos like this. This would be a longer night if I wasn't making a video of it. It's like having company, just talking to the camera. Can't believe I've already been at this 2 hours. Time for another one. Alrighty. I'm a little hungry. Open a banana. Get out again. I'm going to put it on the other side. I want it on the outskirts. This banana's not even ripe. It's very hard to peel when they're green. Oh, come on. Really hard to open. Yeah, that's too green. I shouldn't have opened that. I'll wait before I open another. I guess the moose will have a snack. I'll leave it outside here. Something will be excited for a banana. There's one comment someone left once that will always stick with me. It said, imagine being that animal, having that weird, tasty food, and never being able to ever find it again. Whatever animal eats that, the likelihood of it ever finding another banana is so unlikely. A whole banana anyways. Lots of people throw their peels out the window. But the actual good part of the banana. But I guess it depends who you ask. Remember, my dad's pet rabbits preferred the peel. They actually wouldn't even eat the other part. Some animals are strange. Or some animals won't even touch it because it's unusual, new to them. You can hear it, the snow's getting crunchy. They're melting a little in the sun. 'Cause, you know, we've driven a good amount. When we started this video, that was fluffier snow. You could hear it spraying up. I was mentioning it was making clouds, big dust behind me. Here, this got a good thaw today. That's why it's different looking. This slightly melted and is now hard and crunchy. This will be visible from both directions. Alrighty. Ooh. That wasn't that bad actually. It looked much worse than it was because it had the melt in the middle of it, adding definition to it. That's a bad one. It looks like someone else stopped too to see the swerves. It's been messing with people. Someone did stop. You can see those tracks right there. Someone came to a complete stop and backed up a little. Why? Why didn't they mark it? Alright, gotta listen carefully because we are around a corner, but it's not that bad. That's one of the worst ones of the night, actually. Really abrupt. I think it's a crushed plastic pipe. No way to know 100% until the ditches and snow is gone. Those puddles we drove through earlier. All the spray. Okay, that road's closed. Alright, I know where we are now. I know where we are just from that corner. We want to swing it wide just in case someone's coming. Mainly during the day, you'll see other ones' headlights. You hear the squeaking sound? all that spray, it makes the shocks squeak. But that always goes away. At the end of the week, we always pressure wash really nice. We're gonna do an oil change at the end of the week too. These rougher conditions puts more strain on the engine. Higher RPM going through this because you're bogging down. Mud, slush, snow, bumps. It's more wear and tear. Idling, getting out to constantly mess with things, because it's worse for the engine to start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. Ooh, boom. Alright. Yeah, it's, look at that. Just hit the hot engine parts. It's worse to start, stop, so we leave it running. Just do oil changes. I trust my mechanic on that, especially after the old car lasted so long. Never shut it off unless we were out more than 10 minutes. Yep, that's gotta be flagged. Hey, that's more of a pothole, but I'm gonna flag it because that's pretty bad. That snow is so loud and crunchy. Good early warning if something's running towards you. Highly unlikely. Nothing out here wants anything to do with you. But something like a moose, it would almost 100% of the time run away. But I've seen YouTube videos where it'll be in a bush and someone doesn't realize and they get close to it and it charges. There's always that chance. Unlikely, but there's always a chance. Nothing out here really wants to hurt you, but things can get territorial. Unlikely though. The biggest threat is something rabid, or honestly the biggest threat's another human. Absolute middle of nowhere. The wilderness is pretty safe up in northern Maine. Like, some of my videos are in the actual gated wilderness they have. A lot of my videos aren't. But the actual gated parts of the wilderness, there's surveillance cameras at every entrance. So if somebody does something horrible, they're going to be on camera in some shape or form. Unfortunately, no matter what time of the year it is, unless it's actively raining, which isn't really good either, it'll blur the cameras. There's mud, snow. Like right now, you can't read my license plates. There's so much caked on slush and frozen stuff. I don't know, maybe they got those good high-tech cameras, the newer high-tech cameras where, oh wow, that's a big one. They have newer high-tech cameras, if you didn't know, that can see through mud and stuff. They can see through a piece of cardboard obstructing your plates. It's reading the indent of the plate, actually. It's not physically reading the paint. Okay. It's actually quite scary out. I think we actually do have a... yes it is, yes. I mentioned that earlier. The pink full moon is either today or tomorrow. The moon is huge. I could hear hooting out there, like hoo 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 hoo. Like those scary movies. You got the big moon, owls. You could very well hear packs of coyotes. They're very vocal during the colder months. They're not really a threat either. Even in a pack, they're still unlikely to attack, especially out here. All the coyotes out here look big. You can tell they're well fed. There's snowshoe hares everywhere, all kinds of prey. They look big like huskies. But then in the city, when you see them, they're always scrawny, and those ones are probably more likely to attack because they're very hungry. Not so much out here. I'm not really worried about them, coyotes. And if you ever actually see a real wolf, they're much bigger than you would imagine in real life. They're big like a deer. A little shorter, but very big. We saw some run across the road up in Yukon, Canada. They're much bigger than you would expect, actually, in real life. Watching the nature documentaries, hey, they look like a husky. They're not that big. They're really, really big, some of them things up north. Ooh, another log fell off a truck. What caused it, though? Sometimes they just shake out, but sometimes there's usually a big bump somewhere. The moon looks nice, but it's hazy. See here, there's lots of ripples and bumps. These aren't that bad. We're not marking all these kind of things like this. But as time goes on, once the snow is, when these roads aren't whiteout conditions, they're easier to see. But like when we started the video, the road was pure white. You get snow blinded, you can't see definition, you hit bumps out of nowhere. Horrible. Or the drifting fluffy snow will be hiding bumps. Look at it, boom, 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 boom. You can't mark all this. Just abrupt things, horrible things that are hiding around corners. Not as much as I expected. We only used 2 rolls of ribbons today, but if you happen to notice, these are very big rolls compared to some of them. These are huge rolls. Like, I don't know what I did with the container, because I got a box of these, but the labels, it's not on there. You can't read how many feet it is. Oh, another one. You saw the log? But we're not going to keep marking all these potholes. A lot of unnecessary plastic. If you're hitting that many bumps in a row, you should be looking out for it. We're just more after the hidden hazards. It's actually a lot of fun flagging it. Keep note of other people's ribbons. You have no idea what that could be. That could just be the start of that badness. Yeah, because it did kind of get smooth right now. These off-road situations, it's awesome to have a tire monitoring system. My old car, once the batteries died in the tire sensors, I never replaced it again, whatever. But it's a good thing because it'll notify you that, hey, your pressure's starting to get low, something's wrong, before you're riding on the rim, destroying your tire. So that's nice. The warning light turns on when you're below 30 PSI. Normal for my truck is 33, I believe. Might be 35. Oftentimes, if we're pulling a trailer or something, I'll keep it around 40 in the back to keep it riding nicer. Or I usually overinflate the back a little bit just because we do have... This truck is heavier than stock. We added the metal bumpers, the push bar. We added a fuel tank 3 times as big. But if you think about that, so here's the weird things. The state of California will not allow you to have gigantic aftermarket tanks because it's bad for the environment. You're burning more fuel carrying around all that weight, so they don't allow it. Now here's how that's absolutely ridiculous. 55 gallons of fuel. It weighs less than water, but just for our math's sake, let's say it's still 8 pounds. You do that math, it's just a couple people in the back seat. Not a big deal. Add the metal bumpers. Hey, you got a full load of people. Whatever. It's not that much weight. Like, I literally cannot tell a difference from when I bought this truck and when I modified it. There's literally no difference that's noticeable. It's a fraction of a mile per gallon. You're not even going to notice that. It's ridiculous. Like, when I bought the aftermarket tank, I love the sense of humor of the manufacturer. So the manufacturer who makes the aftermarket tank for... Okay, so if you have any vehicle that has a spare tire in the back, no matter what kind of truck it might be, SUV truck, anything big like that, if it's got a spare tire, you can get a aftermarket tank that goes under the back in place of that. The company's in Florida, and what's hilarious that their website says is, because you have to do a few multiple choice questions upon ordering it, and you have to set up freight delivery because it's big. It shows it's big and heavy. It's a heavy-duty tank made to be bottomed out on. It shows up on a pallet. It took Toyota a while. It took them a couple days to modify it to fit because they were like, hey, this thing isn't fitting exactly right. They had to move part of the frame and re-weld it around it, reinforced it real nice. But it came from Florida, and one of the multiple choice questions I'll never forget was, it said in there, no, I do not live in the state of California. Please ship my item. The other multiple choice answer was, I live in the state of California and I would like to pay for it but not receive it. That's so funny. They will not ship it to that state because it's illegal. It's so funny. Absolutely hilarious. I think it's called Destination Off-Road, the company that sells it. Really funny. Massachusetts, I believe, also has issues with modified things like that. You can modify your vehicle in most states ways that the manufacturer is not allowed to build them. Years ago, they stopped making gas tanks in the rear for a reason. If somebody rear-ended me at high speeds, it will puncture that tank. But that's why I have metal bumpers. It'll protect it a lot more. I'm more likely to slide into a tree or hit a deer than I am, I think, to hit another vehicle. So that's why I modified. I got rid of my crumple zone. That's one thing I don't like about Massachusetts, though. In that state, even if you don't cause the accident, even if some moron pulls out in front of you, you are liable if your vehicle's modified to not crumple and protect the moron's life. I hate that so much. I really do. Like, I get it. If it's your fault, okay. But people do make mistakes. I think that's the only state that has that crumple rule. I don't like that. I'm glad I left. And someone recently told me, you know, you're always complaining about slow people in front of you going way under the limit. You think your push bars have anything to do with that? Because lots of city people see push bars and they assume law enforcement. You know, that's a good point. Before I moved to the country, I actually assumed that you wouldn't be allowed to have that. You know, when I was younger and I never traveled, there's certain states, more than half the vehicles actually have those. Like, I've been out to some of the states out west where there's deer and cattle everywhere. Everyone in some of those small towns has them because the hit rate of deer is just so high. Around here, you don't see them. I'd say only a couple % of cars have them. You do see them daily, but it's not the majority by any means. But you gotta know the difference. Toyota only makes brush bars, basically just for show. It's what it says. It pushes bushes and branches out of the way to stop it from scratching you up. Offers no crash protection. In fact, it'll actually make the crash worse if it folds backwards into your radiator and stuff. The point of a push bar is to keep your vehicle running after a hit. Especially out here. Imagine if I'm driving fast and I hit a deer and puncture the radiator and no one drives by me for a day or at a time on these main arteries. If I'm on some of the off-skirt roads that aren't actively being plowed or logged, someone might not find you for literal months, especially in this sort of weather. People just don't go out on some of those roads. So if you do hit something, you need to be able to get yourself out. That's why I have the winch. It saved me so much money over the years and not having to pay people to tow me. My old car once got stuck in the mud for 18 hours. It was in one of those roads where probably no one would drive down it for weeks because it was the spring thaw, very muddy. I had to leave it idling for 18 hours. If I would have shut it off, mud would have entered the exhaust system and solidified. You never would have started it again without taking the exhaust apart. But thankfully it never got into the exhaust because I kept it running, you know, keeping pressure to stop the mud from getting in there. But how'd I get out? Just by chance. Most of these areas don't have a signal. I walked to the top of a hill and had one emergency bar. And I was able to call 911, the only number it would allow me to call with that emergency signal. After about 12 hours, the park rangers got out there and they were happy to pull me out. They say accidents happen. They just pulled me right out with a tow strap. Super easy. And they told me, hey, there's a lot of mud. Drive fast or you're gonna get stuck again immediately. That was fun. No, actually, it really wasn't fun. That was actually quite scary, getting trapped out in an area with no signal. And I had to go for a walk up one of the neighboring hills, which was quite the walk. And I told them, you can't call me back. You know, there's no way for you to call me back, because an emergency signal, I think, only works one way. Plus, when I walk back to the vehicle, there's no signal anyways. I was like, I don't think you're coming. I don't think they found me. No, it was just that bad. It took them 12 hours to get out there. They even had to winch themselves out getting me out there because their trucks are heavier. That's how I got myself into trouble. My vehicle was able to get over a lot of that mud without sinking. But I've had no problem with the winch. That's why I had the winch installed immediately by the dealership. I didn't even get to drive this truck before it was installed. I knew that was essential. Once these roads turn to mud, I'll be getting stuck pretty much daily. I have a couple videos out there. I had to winch myself out 20 feet down the road. I have to hook onto another tree, another tree, another tree, another tree. You're there for over an hour doing that until you finally get yourself out. But it's better than being stuck there indefinitely. Of course, I try not to get stuck. I've never intentionally got stuck just to play with the winch, but it's happened repeatedly over and over again before. Also, a lot of those roads, you disturb it going down there, and if you do absolutely have to turn around and backtrack, you just made the road worse for yourself. That's happened before to me also. That's what they're for. They're there to help. But at the same time, going back to what I was just saying, you know, some people who aren't big into vehicles, I don't think even notice things like that. But you don't see Toyota police cars ever. I saw one once in Oregon. Wasn't an actual police officer. It was more of a ranger out in the sticks. It's the only time I've ever seen blue lights on a Toyota ever. Once ever. You don't see that here. But most people, that wouldn't really click in their head, I guess, if they didn't know otherwise. So I guess that makes sense why I always have slow people jammed in front of me. That could be it. Very well could be. Crunch. Let's open the window a little. Can I open it? Oh wow, that sounds good. Listen to that crunch. I'm gonna drive over it a little. No, not as crunchy. It's more crunchy in the treads. It's too fluffy off to the sides. I love that sound. Nice. It's like nails on a chalkboard. I don't like opening the windows. You can hear that there's sand on the windows. I'm not going to open those again. It's also good if you live in the Rust Belt to not open your windows in the winter a lot, because salt gets in your doors where it can't get out. It promotes the bottoms of your doors rusting from the inside out. So I try not to unless I absolutely have to. In the winter, I try not to go through drive-thrus when there's salt on the windows. Sometimes you just have to put them down sometimes, you know? Like, for whatever reason, going through the border, it's suspicious and threatening sometimes to open your door instead of putting your window down. At least I see it that way. You know, it's weird opening your door at their security booth. It doesn't look right. So I don't do that. This road's actually pretty smooth. There was a really slippery spot earlier on. I am expecting the worst up here at some point. But that was the worst of the worst. This road's not that bad now. Probably end the video soon. Yeah, I think we're gonna end it soon. I think we will. How are we doing on Bluetooth transferring from the other camera? Let's see. Still going, but it's on file 3, and I believe that's the final file. Because we did get a good unclogging video. I'm just Bluetoothing camera number 2 over to camera number 1, which I will edit it together. 100% of my videos are edited on the phone. The only time I ever edited videos on a laptop were the first year on YouTube making all those slideshows when they used to have YouTube video editor. That's no longer a thing. I used to upload every raw video clip to YouTube, then edit it in their editor. It took up a huge amount of storage space. Totally understand why they got rid of it. I understand why. Waste of money. But yeah, most of my videos are edited on the phone at night once I stop for the night. Always worked out good like that. I used to use good digital cameras, and you know what people say? And they're right. New modern phones are better than digital cameras. They know how to adjust the light perfectly. They know how to autofocus perfectly. So I completely phased out those expensive DSLR cameras I used to use. I used to use good cameras, and they were expensive. It's pointless. These ones have such good autofocus for driving. The autofocus goes bad after 2 years or so. That's when I replaced my phone. Once the autofocus starts to make buzzing sounds and vibrating sounds that you can hear in the video, that's when because these bumpy roads destroy the autofocus bubble. The lens that floats around, it does get damaged. Because this is unusual wear. Most people aren't having their camera like this for days on end, constantly. Bump, bump, bump. And these roads are only going to get worse as we approach pothole season. Yeah, I actually recently just traded in a phone. I factory reset it. You know, they say that factory resetting, your information's not truly gone. You know, a computer tech could see trace amounts in your storage. But, you know, the likelihood of my phone getting resold to a hacker or a computer tech, I think, is slim. So I had to take it, you know. Lately, before this job season started coming back up again, money was slow. So I absolutely traded it in. I recently upgraded my phone. I got rid of the crappiest one with a crack on the screen. They offered me $270. I traded in, that was a S23 Ultra with a crack on the screen. They offered me $270. Not bad. The autofocus was broken, but they didn't ask about that. They still gave me the $270. I'm sure they'll fix that before reselling it, replace that lens. Because these new cameras are awesome. They have 5 lenses. They have 0.6 big panoramic, regular like I'm using now, 0.1. They have 2, 3 times, 10 times optical, meaning no digital zoom, no blurriness. It's awesome. It has true lenses that move. I like that. Really good cameras. Even the digital zoom is awesome, up to 100-time digital zoom on the camera. And it uses AI correction to make it look actually really good and crisp. I love it, actually. These new phones are amazing. I love these new Samsung phones. So right now, what do I have for phones? I got rid of that older one. The one currently recording is a second S23 Ultra. The new one I just got is a S25 Ultra. I didn't want to spend the money for an S26 because apparently from the reviews there's no difference except some stupid AI features I don't care about. No difference, really. So might as well get the one that's $400 cheaper than the brand new one. Doesn't matter, really doesn't. This is still a brand new phone. They, I guess, keep it in production for a couple years for people that can't afford the newest of the new. I can afford it, I'm just not gonna. I'd rather save money. The quality's no different. Quality's no different. I'm not wasting money. But I do like the newer phone does have dual record. You have to download an app on the other one to do that. It means front camera and back camera can be used at the same time. So I can be on the screen in the little corner while recording what's in front of me at the same time. I like that for some situations. I like doing that on shorts. I didn't even know that was a thing until Steve, the guardrail guy, was showing that feature. I didn't even know the phone did that. The S23 does not do that. I don't think it does. But it comes right up on the newer S25. But these phones work really good for that. And I make sure to special order the terabyte storage. The ones in the stores, you can only get the 500 gigabyte. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't sell the maximum storage one in the store. And I would have got the S26 if it had the 2 terabyte storage. They do not. Hopefully, maybe one of the newer years they'll do that. I know Apple now has a 2 terabyte phone. It's not really necessary for me. I just carry a high capacity USB-C flash drive. If I get full, I put it in that. No big deal. Not worth. I'll never switch over to Apple. It's not compatible with other things I have. I don't like that. You have to buy their stuff, which is super expensive. Never go into them. Never. I'll stay with Samsung. I've had good luck. Samsung, they say, got a better camera than the Apple. But the best phone, they say, is the Google Pixel camera. It's the best. Never tried it. Don't plan on it. I'll keep doing what's been working for me for a while. But people always ask me what I'm recording with. It's just a normal phone that a lot of people have. Cameras are just as good as anything else. In fact, that's why I don't use digital cameras. People say that the quality's better. People wouldn't even know these were phones if I didn't mention it or show it in reflections. No, not a big deal. Yeah, this area doesn't really have frost heaves. We already went through the bad section. There's not really going to be any more of that, so I'll probably wrap this video up soon. How long have we been recording? 2 hours, 49 minutes. Maybe we can make it a solid 3 hours. We'll see. Mile 65 from the Quebec border. That's what that is. So in today's video, we drove about 50 miles that we just covered. Because we started 13 miles in, I believe, from the border. I didn't go near the border. I always feel weird going up to the border and just turning around. There's an unmanned border up there. Just a bunch of cameras. I already mentioned that in this video. I think I already mentioned that. Unmanned, but you'll trigger an alarm with a response if you drive over it illegally. The log trucks are allowed to, though. They have sensors that know what trucks are coming in and out. Log trucks don't have to stop at the border, I don't think. They might have to stop and wait for a green light, or I'm not sure. But I know they don't have to, there's no physical person there. They got sensors, they'll know if there's more people than there's supposed to be in that truck. Got some logs there waiting for the trucks. They'll be running soon. This is icing up nicely, becoming nice and firm. It'll be nice and firm by the time 2 in the morning comes along when the trucks start heading out. Nothing severe, nothing abrupt. We're not marking any of this right now. To my second fuel tank. One only complaint I've ever had about it. So, it's cool. There's a button in here. When I get low on the factory tank, I hit a button, it starts transferring fuel over. Because it can fill my other tank up more than once. Once it hits full, you have to shut it off or it's just going to keep pumping. What happens is the factory tank will just start overflowing again back into the non-factory tank. Because there's, one fuel cap. And there's a Y, a splitter. When you go to the gas pump, you need to put it on the slow setting. If you put it on the fast setting, it'll fill up the factory tank first, and it's just going to keep shutting you off. You have to put it on slow to slowly trickle fill the other one. That's how it works. But it won't overflow anything if you overfill the factory one. It just starts overflowing below the evaporation canister. So you won't wreck that if you accidentally... Yeah, every now and then I'll be like, hey, I left that on a little too long. Nothing's going to happen. Now, you won't burn out the fuel pump in the second tank either. Once it's empty, it'll go beep, 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 and that's telling you it's empty and we're shutting it off. Because there's even a fuel gauge for the second tank. I look down and it indicates with 4 green lights. That means it's full. That's a quarter tank each one. And once it turns red, that means you're close to it beeping and shutting off. Pretty cool. Only complaint, only problem. For a while, I was like, hey, the transfer pump's not working. I had to turn it on, off a couple times to finally get it to start moving. When my mechanic took it apart, he was like, I can't even find a model number on this Chinese thing. All it said was China. There was no model number, nothing. But he ordered one by Hollywell, a nice name brand one, with the same voltage. It actually pumps slightly faster. He said, I don't think this will ever burn out in the lifetime of your truck, ever. But if it does, it has a lifetime warranty from Hollywell. He said it's easy to take out. I thought he was going to have to drop the tank. He was like, nope, it's not in the tank. The transfer pump is on right next to the tank, where it's convenient to get to it, at least. It was quite the ordeal for the Toyota dealership that installed the tank to do that. That wasn't that bad. Yeah, they said, you're the first person ever that this Toyota dealership has ever done this for. And they were glad to take on the challenge. They like that. Because a Toyota dealership in a rural area, they're constantly lifting things, modifying things for off-road, skid plates, winches, metal bumpers. That's normal for them. But they were like, you're the first person ever to install this type of system. We've never seen this before. We didn't even know it was a thing. I looked around, a lot of dealerships are like, that doesn't exist. We're not installing that. But I found one that did. They installed it very beautifully. They did great welding work. Before installing the tank, they even repainted the pieces of the frame they cut and welded so nothing would rust. They buttoned it up really nice, actually. Really good job. It's a heavy-duty tank. It's basically a skid plate in itself. You can bottom out on that tank. It's very heavy. When I showed it to my grandfather's almost 90 years old. He'll still get down on his knees to look under there if I'm talking to him about something. He's always been super busy of a person. You know, people always say, I see it in YouTube comments all the time, it makes me sad. You know, people when they're over 70 years old, they shouldn't be driving. My grandfather's honestly one of the best drivers I know. Always constantly driving across the country in his retirement years, still no problems. Cognitively awesome. Yeah, maybe people should have to take a cognitive test when they get a certain age every couple years, but no, there should never be a rule where you lose your license. Never. He even still renews his CDL license. He's like, hey, what if I need to move? I can rent my own truck. He still renews it. He actually got his CDL as a retiree because he was bored. He had forced retirement when he was 65. He used to assemble and maintain airplane engines, but he had forced retirement, and then he became a semi-truck driver in Florida, just moving oranges around, not cross-country, because he used to live in Florida for a while before he was like, I'm tired of this heat. He moved back up here for a while. Then he had forced retirement at age 80 from the trucking company. And after that, he became a U.S. Forest Service officer up north, which was cool. Age 80 until about 85. Then he just does a lot of volunteering now still. Always got to keep busy. That's how he is. Always got to be busy doing something. I'm sort of the same way. Always got to be busy. I get easily bored. Always got to be doing something hands-on. That's where I get that from. My dad was the same way. Always has to be working on something. Always. You know, I've had, like, my old electrical guy when I was an apprentice used to make me take a 20-minute break. And you know, he's right. After a 20-minute break, sitting around, drinking water, having a lunch, I feel better, more energized, rest. And you know what? I always say I gotta do that. I don't. I really should. I'm the type of person, I cannot stop until the job's done. I don't eat anything. I don't drink either, but every now and then I'll just chug a whole bottle of water. And then I'm right back to work 30 seconds later. That's how I am. Same way out here. Until I'm very tired, job's not done. And the job is never done out here doing what I'm doing now. It's never done. So many hundreds of miles of roads that the company I do for does alone. There's thousands of miles of logging roads up north here that I travel. And you know what? I'll mark any hazard for anyone. They're open to the public. Anyone could hit these holes. I'll mark anything. Make these roads a little safer. I'm just hoping I can physically be that tough if I even made it to 90 years old. My grandpa was in the hospital 2 years ago after brain surgery. He hit his head really hard when he was roller skating when he was old. He was in his late 80s. No helmet, hit his head real hard. No No one thought he was going to make it. None of the doctors thought he was going to make it. But I drove down there, kept bringing him food, his favorite snacks, every single day for like a month in the hospital. Refused to eat it all. He was so skinny, so super skinny, like a skeleton. And one of the doctors was like, we're going to start giving him medical marijuana pills. Maybe he'll start eating. They switched his doctor, refused. After days of me bugging the crap out of them, they eventually agreed, okay, we're going to give him the medical marijuana pills. It saved his life. It gave him the munchies, and he kept eating and eating. Now it's good to see him with a slight belly. He completely gained the weight back. He had like dementia for a couple months. They took his license away. But then he went right into the DMV, and they gave it right back. They didn't even make him wait a certain amount of time. They gave it right back. That was nice. Or I should say they unsuspended it, or whatever it was. But yeah, Florida regulates even medical marijuana like a hard opioid, which is ridiculous, because I do see the importance in that now. It literally did save his life. Because he wasn't eating for weeks. He was surviving on nothing but these IV bags, which wasn't much. But if you like these kind of vlog videos, I make these videos literally almost every day out here. I just post them on my second channel, post 10 vlogs and extras. A lot of people don't know that exists, but it's always been linked in the bio of my channel. It should also be linked in my descriptions. Most of my descriptions should have a link to my other channels, should have a link to my Patreon, where I give early access to all these videos weeks or months early, because to keep my channel diverse and interesting, I'm always posting something random. For example, I can make a dozen unclogging videos in a day, all immediately uploaded when they're created to Patreon. They will be slowly dispersed throughout the slower seasons to keep the channel diverse. That's how we have unclogging videos in the middle of the winter. They're brand new videos, never seen before, but that's how we do it. But you know, there's some people that will not like a certain video, and they're nice enough, they'll comment, you know, this is not my thing. I'll leave a comment to help your algorithm, but it's not my thing. You know, I kind of like that. But then you get people like, I don't like this, I'm unsubscribing. Okay, that's fine. You know, when you look at analytics, it'll actually tell you how many people have unsubscribed from you in the years. If nobody who has been subscribed unsubscribed, we'd actually be at 1.5 million followers right now on this channel. That's how many people come and go over the years. But if you don't like it, we'll always post something different the next day. You know, I try not to do, you know, a whole week's long of experiment videos. Try not to do a whole week's long of unclogging videos. Not a whole week of camping. We'll do one here, one there, one there. You know, we try to keep it different every day. And that's why I backlog videos like that for the slower times. Like, you know, if we're not making videos, I'll start posting less. Like, if we have an abundance of videos, I'll be posting daily. If we don't, it'll slow down to twice a week, once a week during the slower times of the year. But I always try to ensure there's something interesting coming out and not too boring. If I think it's boring, typical videos like this one right now will usually be put on my other channel nearly daily. Just boring things, working on things at home, oil changes, things that aren't too interesting. They all get thrown on my other channel. Talking videos like this. Like right now, this is kind of boring. There's no frost heaves right now. This is a pretty good section of the road. Well engineered, deep drainage ditches prevent that from happening. But what was I going to say about I was going to talk more about that with people, about the analytics of this channel. Maybe some things you didn't know. I think I already talked to you about it, yeah. 60% of viewers are American, 18 Canadian, and then the numbers drop off from there. But we're viewed in pretty much every country to some degree, because the subtitles really help people read along. And now with the new AI stuff, my videos, they even change my voice into other languages, so it's easier to follow instead of reading along. I think that feature's cool too. YouTube's been doing that. I do wonder what my voice sounds like in other languages. I guess I'll never know unless I actually go to one of those countries and use someone else's computer, which I'll probably never do. I have more than I could ever just in North America. I don't really plan on ever going overseas. But that being said, plane tickets are actually super cheap. I found out certain times of the year, if you book in advance, you can even fly overseas for just a couple $100. Interesting. But I don't really plan on doing anything like that. This channel, as it is, spends 60% of earnings just on reproduction of the videos. It's not cheap. You don't even want to know what this channel spent on gasoline alone in 2025 before fuel prices were higher. A lot of money. Tens of thousands on fuel alone just to run this channel. That's our biggest expense. Fuel. We don't have anything like hotel expenses. Always sleep in the truck when traveling and photographing. I think hotels are a waste of money. We go to truck stops every now and then if we need a shower. Or just take a bath in... Oh, more logs fell off right there. Or we'll just take a bath in clean water if it's warmer out. As long as it's not like Florida with alligators and venomous snakes, we'll take baths in random ponds. The water's so clean in places like this. The rivers are very clean. Just use natural soaps. Save money a lot that way. Because if we had to get hotels every day, I literally don't think we'd be able to afford to make the videos we currently do. Plus, hotels, I feel obligated to be there until checkout time because I paid for it, and I like to get going at the crack of dawn when I'm traveling. Waste of money. Cheaper just to sleep in the truck. It's nice and comfortable. All the way in the back of the truck, I got a full-size mattress. I usually don't use that. I just sleep up front here, especially in the woods when I'm alone. That's cool. We also got that little camper. I don't know if I'll use that again. I kind of want to use it once because it's got the air conditioning system, like if we go to like the Southwest. We're pulling a trailer, the gas mileage, we're going to wait on that for some time in the future. But this channel's like, it breaks it up by other things too in the analytics. Like gender, 70% guys is what watches this channel. What else do they got in there? It's kind of cool. It'll give you a color-coded map of all the countries, states, and provinces of percentage-wise. Like, we have, I said 60% is American, but it'll also break it up what state is your highest viewer and stuff. Highest viewing state, I believe, is surprisingly New York, but that's just because there's a lot of people there. I'm trying to think what else it tells me. I haven't looked at it in a long time. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah. Just because a video has a good amount of views doesn't mean people are actually watching it. Clicks and views are different. Just because an unclogging video has 500,000 views, people will usually just skip to the most exciting spot where the dam washes out or they want to see the whirlpool, then they shut it off. Unclogging videos only have a retention rate of around 17%, while camping videos, exploring videos will be in the 60 percentile, which is really good actually. So those videos, despite having a fraction of the views, actually perform a lot better in the analytics because people watch them through. People enjoy those videos more, but it's a very specific people. A lot of those videos won't even surpass 30,000 views. People aren't there to see that. They're mainly here on this channel to see the exciting parts of the uncloggings. But the very specific audience does view those videos much longer, is what I'm saying. And I was surprised. I just recently posted my most recent video of buying the deep freezer, not even using it for anything, just the unboxing April Fool's video, which actually got more views than I thought it would. So it looks like people will like those experiments. I said, if you don't like these experiments, I'll just put them on my other channel for my own entertainment. But it looks like people actually do like them. So maybe I will keep those on the main channel. We got some interesting things coming up if I haven't already posted it. We even bought liquid mercury, which we had to pay a hazmat fee, and they refused to send it to my residential address, so I just sent it to my tree growth address, which gets forwarded to me anyways, so joke's on you. Got it anyways. But yeah, liquid mercury, anyone can buy that. You just have to pay hazmat fees because it's very dangerous if you spill it or something in your house. If you spill liquid mercury inside of your house, we better mark that one. We gotta get out. We gotta mark that one. Ooh, I don't like, what was that? A little tremble when I put it in reverse. You know, I filmed so many of them, I'm not even gonna keep that in as part of the video. Boom, boom, that's pretty abrupt. Had to get that one. Most of these ones out here are not too bad on this section of road. What was I talking about again? I forgot what we were talking about again while stepping out. I forgot. Oh yeah, liquid mercury. That stuff's so dangerous, it's not allowed on airplanes. You should watch a video on why it's not on airplanes. It's actually very interesting. Mercury destroys metal. If it leaked, it will not stop until it hits the ground. It'll eat a hole right through the airplane. Not just a hole. That corrosion caused by it will keep eating and eating and eating. That's why you can't do it. I want to make a video of that in time lapse. If you put a drop of mercury on aluminum, it'll eat right through it. It's actually very interesting. It just destroys it. I want to make some videos like that. Mercury is not too dangerous, but if you spilled it in your house, it will off-gas as it evaporates. Very dangerous, toxic gases. But, you know, it open, being in the room with you while doing experiments, it's not really hazardous. It's hazardous when it's allowed to sit there evaporating. Or if it gets into water, or if it gets into your bloodstream. Very dangerous. The smallest speck of it in your bloodstream can be extremely bad. That's why during wars they used to put it in the end of hollow point bullets. Because if the bullet didn't get you, blood poisoning would eventually. That's why it's so dangerous. There's many very dangerous reasons for that. But to an extent, I'm actually still surprised you can buy it. But I'm glad I was able to buy it. I bought a pound of it. I had a bunch as a kid I used to play with. You know, that used to be a children's toy. Even up into the 70s, you used to be able to buy liquid mercury for children. It's fun to hold in the hand. It's 3 times as dense as steel. Very heavy feeling for its size. It's interesting, fun to play with. You know, I was a very mature child, so I never did anything dumb with it. But my dad used to tell me, you know, don't think this is cool, don't drop it in your aquarium, don't eat it, don't put it in a cut, only handle it if you have no cuts on your hands. You know, but there's reasons. A lot of kids aren't mature enough to have a toy like that. That's why it's banned as a children's toy. They used to make these really cool, like, mazes. You know those mazes where it'll have a steel ball inside of it and you have to tilt it, you know, to solve the maze? They used to have that with a ball of mercury, and it's cool because the ball of mercury is so heavy you can feel it moving around. It's really cool. I don't know where I always hope I'd find one of those old toys at like a estate sale. It's really cool. I would love to have some of those banned toys. Because they're banned, you can't even buy them on eBay apparently. I've looked for them. Can't get them. But they're understandably banned. Kid will break it. The parents might not know the exact hazards of that. That'll be off-gassing in the cracks of your floor or in your carpet, slowly poisoning your air if it gets out. There's reasons. There really are. But my dad had an abundance of it because as a veterinarian, he had x-ray equipment. And I'm not exactly sure how, but x-ray equipment needs liquid mercury. I'm not sure how. He had one of those old x-ray machines where you pull out this like giant slide. I don't even know how those work, but I remember as a little kid, My children's doctor had one of those, but that's very obsolete now. I regret not keeping things like that. That'd be cool to have an x-ray machine. Should have kept all that stuff when my dad passed. He wasn't a veterinarian since the early 2000s, but still, he had all that cool equipment still laying around, and it worked. I think it worked. I know I took a bunch of his microscopes, completely useless, unfortunately. They'd have to be professionally cleaned, and it's not worth it because they're obsolete. Cigarette smoke got into all the prisms, literally rendering everything useless. I don't know if an x-ray machine would have been affected by that. I don't know. I really don't know. But I remember he used to have the no-no room. You're not allowed in this room in the basement because there was like glass jars of all kinds of dangerous things, from chloroform. If you break that on the floor, it's gonna knock you out. All kinds of things for doing surgery on animals. And he used to tell me as a little kid, don't go in the basement, there's a little green man or gremlin or whatever down there. It scared me enough to not go down there as a little kid because he didn't want me knocking something over that's extremely dangerous. But that was cool. I remember even as a 10-year-old, I was afraid to go in some of his basement rooms because he'd keep things in jars of formaldehyde, like he had a 3-headed cat. He said this cat only lived for about a couple hours after birth, but it's so rare and interesting, he kept it in a jar of formaldehyde. One of my friends has that, actually. I gave it to him because he thought it was cool when we cleaned out my dad's house. Again, I regret not keeping the formaldehyde too, because there's uses for that. You can own it, but you can't buy it. I think that's one of those things you can own, but you can't buy it unless you have a certain license like he did. Because he knew a lot of ways, like he used to treat ick in aquariums with formaldehyde, and it worked. Old ick medications, the active ingredient was formaldehyde, but people did dangerous stuff with it, and that's why they stopped making it. It worked really good. A couple drops of formaldehyde, and nobody tried this. He knew how to do this. I don't know how to do this. You put a couple drops of formaldehyde in a giant aquarium, and he said, this stuff doesn't evaporate or go bad. It keeps protecting against ick. You only have to apply it to the tank once. After like a week, do a water change, it's gone. I used to use this stuff called Aquarisol, which was a very powerful, now banned. They still make it, but it doesn't have the formaldehyde in it anymore. That's why it used to work so good. Old medications for animals like that. And that was cool. But I was too little to see any of that stuff. All I remember was a giant basement of cages with nothing in them anymore. That's all I remember. Exotic animal. He specialized in reptiles and birds, but he would perform surgeries on cats and dogs, but it wasn't really his thing. That's cool. He had to go to college for like 12 years for that. I can't stand school. That's why I wouldn't do something like that. Any of the trades jobs I'm interested in, they don't need that. Right here, I'm not marking things as vigorously because the speed limit here is much lower. The truck should not be going 45 or oftentimes 60 on that, like on that road we were flagging earlier. When those roads are in good conditions, those trucks are flying. They own the road. They're allowed to break the speed limits. But I like doing these talking videos, vlog videos, as I'm driving and bored. But I think I'm going to listen to music now. Continue this drive, because this part of the road doesn't really have much for us. But thanks for everyone for reaching the end of the video. We usually don't make videos this long. Not even on the vlog channel. They're usually under an hour. Like, we do videos all the time. Moose watching, all kinds of cool stuff. Just hiking, vlogs. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.